So this is a bit of a weird section, right? Does anyone actually know what's going on? Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel Raina on the Cusp. My name is Raina. I'm a third year dental student at the University of Sheffield if you're new here. Today we are continuing on with my UCAT series and we are tackling the decision making section. In this video I'll be sharing my top tips for decision making and going through some example questions from Medify as well. I've also got a very exciting announcement to make. I've teamed up with Medify to do a giveaway for you guys, so please stay till the end of this video if you want to know all of the details on how to enter. And if you do like this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and comment down below to let me know if you're doing the UCAT this year. And also a huge thank you to Medify for providing all of the questions for this video. So just a quick disclaimer, I sat the UCAT back in 2016 and it was a year they were actually trialling the decision making section. So although we had the questions on our exam, we didn't actually have to do them and they didn't count towards our final score. So I've actually gone away and taught myself decision making from scratch in order to make this video, so please give this a thumbs up. So what is the decision making section? This is the second section that comes up in the test and it was included from 2017 onwards. It assesses your ability to reach logical decisions, evaluate arguments and analyse statistical information to come to a conclusion. This section has 29 questions and 31 minutes, so that's just over 1 minute per question, which is quite a bit more than you get per question in the other sections. However, these questions are a little bit different to the other sections and in this video you will see why you need that extra bit of time. So the first question type that I want to talk about is drawing conclusions, or probably more commonly known as syllogisms. This is where you get given 5 statements or conclusions based on a text about a random topic and you have to say whether the conclusions follow the text logically with a yes, or if it doesn't follow logically, you mark the answer no. This is actually the easiest type of question to recognise as it's the only type of question that comes with essentially 5 sub-questions, and because it is essentially 5 questions in one, it might take you that little bit longer. However, don't worry, as some of the other easier questions in this section should make up for that. So let's look at a question that I've picked from the Medify question bank. So I've got my laptop here and I'll be looking down at the question. As you can see, we have 5 separate statements here and we have a line that gives us the stem of the question. So you need to get really familiar with this layout and this drag and drop system. Remember, if you do decide to change your answer, you just need to drag the new answer on top and not drag the original one away. So with these types of questions, I would definitely read the stem of the question first. So the stem reads as follows. All the students like maths except for Tom, who likes sport. More than one of the students likes English. Place yes if the conclusion does follow, place no if the conclusion does not follow. The reason I would read the stem first is because if you went straight to the statements, they would make no sense without that context. And then I would start from the first statement and just simply work my way down. So also with these syllogism type questions, you need to understand the terminology. Often these questions use words like some, all, none, and it's really important that you understand what these mean. So if you want to have a go at this question, pause the screen now, and let's work through each of the statements in turn. So the first one says, if a student likes sport, they don't like maths. In the stem we can see that Tom likes sport but he doesn't like maths. However, the information doesn't say that if anyone else likes sport, they also don't like maths. So here the answer is no. The next one says some students like maths and English. So the first part of the stem says all the students like maths. So therefore, if all the students like maths, some students must like maths. And then the stem also says more than one of the students like English, so therefore if it's more than one, that means some of the students like English. So therefore here the answer is yes. The next one reads, if a student does not like maths, it must be Tom. So again, you can see in the stem it says all the students like maths except for Tom. This means everyone but Tom likes maths. So therefore here the answer is yes, because the information states that Tom is the only student that does not like maths. The next one is Tom only likes sport. So the information says that Tom does like sport, but it doesn't talk about any of the other subjects that he likes or dislikes. So here we cannot draw this conclusion. Therefore, the answer to this one is no. And finally, if a student does not like English, they must like sport. Again, we can't say this is true because the information doesn't make any links between liking English and liking sport. So with questions like this, you never want to use your outside knowledge or any opinions that you have. You don't want to jump to conclusions, and you only want to use what is in front of you in the text. And remember, if you can't tell from the text, the answer is no. There isn't a can't tell option here like there is with verbal reasoning. And just a couple other points before we move on to the next question type. The marks that you get in these questions are a little bit strange. So you actually don't get 5 marks for getting 5 statements right, but rather if you only get 0 to 3 right, you get no marks. 4 correct and you get 1 mark, and 5 correct and you get 2 marks. So this is the only question type in decision making where you can actually get 2 marks for 1 question. So therefore these question types are really worth practicing, and you can get 2 marks in a question if you're really confident with this. So as we saw, you can have syllogisms based on just text, but you can also get ones where there are graphs or tables. However, you would just treat these like a normal question and only use the data presented to you. So the next question type that I want to go through is evaluating arguments or recognizing assumptions. I actually think these are by far the hardest type of question, and they're really confusing because it's hard to distinguish between what you think is right and what the question is saying. And I found when I was going through these types of questions, all 4 answers can seem right in your head. But the trick here is that you need to pick the answer with the fewest assumptions and the one that's based on facts and evidence. So any statement that has any bias, assumptions, opinions attached to it, you need to try and recognize that and ignore those. This is a big theme in the UCAT. You can't use your own knowledge, opinions ever. Always, always, always use what's in front of you and go off the information given to you. So again, here we've got a question from the Medify question bank, and you always get a question presented to you and then 2 yes statements and 2 no statements. So the question here is, should vaccination be compulsory in order to reduce the number of outbreaks of infectious diseases? Select the strongest argument from the statements below. So pause the screen now if you want to have a go at this question before we go through it. So a couple of things that actually helped me to tackle this type of question that I learned from the UCAT tutorials on Medify are that you need to think about whether the answer is both relevant and logical. So if it's relevant, it means that it must address all aspects of the question, and if it's logical, it means that it must not make any assumptions. So the first statement reads, yes, vaccinations have been able to eradicate harmful diseases such as smallpox. So there's 2 reasons why this statement is wrong. Firstly, it's talking about eradication, whereas the question is only talking about reducing the number of outbreaks. And secondly, it's only naming smallpox, whereas the question is talking about infectious diseases in general. The next statement reads as follows, yes, since vaccines were introduced, the number of outbreaks of infectious diseases has reduced. So this is actually the correct answer, as it's addressing the question. It's talking about the number of outbreaks of infectious diseases and it's linking vaccines to the reduction of them. Therefore, it's very relevant and it's very logical. So in an exam situation, if you arrived at that answer and you were pretty confident that that was the correct one, you don't need to go and check the other ones, just mark it and move on. So the next one reads, no, a disease outbreak can still occur when most of the population is vaccinated, as vaccines are not 100% effective. So again, this statement doesn't address the fact that the question is only talking about reducing the number of outbreaks and not completely eliminating it. And the final statement says, no, vaccines can have harmful side effects. This is actually pretty irrelevant in response to the question. It doesn't talk about vaccines or linking them to reducing the number of outbreaks at all. And you can see that it's introduced a new topic of side effects which isn't mentioned at all in the question. So if you ever see a statement in this sort of question type introduce a new topic that you haven't seen in the question, then you can immediately eliminate that. And something that I learned when I was preparing for this video is that no answers have to provide you with an alternative solution. It can't just say why it should be no and then not solve the issue that's been presented. So I think that's a really helpful tip in being able to eliminate statements quickly. And I will leave the solution from Medify up on the screen now so you can have a read of what it says. So next, let's talk about logical puzzle questions. I think these are actually my favourite type of questions, as they get you to think a little bit outside of the box and get you to solve a puzzle or a problem, and I found them a little bit more interesting than the other question types. These questions mostly revolve around the position of a person or an object in relation to another. Usually you need to follow a set of instructions or rules in order to solve the problem. So pause the screen now if you want to have a read of this question. It's quite long, so I won't read it all out. And as you can see, there are a series of rules to follow in order to solve this question. So a really helpful tip for questions like this is to grab some pen and paper and draw a diagram. Obviously on the real day you'll have a whiteboard and a marker pen, so do make use of that. So I'll actually insert a clip of me working this question out so you can see how I would lay it out. Something you'll see me doing in this clip is using abbreviations. This is because you don't have the time to write out all of the names individually in full, and it will save you so much time if you just write down a letter to represent everyone. And also with questions like this, you need to make sure that you're thinking about all of the rules and not just one of them, because they are usually interconnected. So let's go through this question. Ursula has an orange house with neither 1 nor 3 floors. So I would write the letter U to represent Ursula, and then underneath it I would write the letter O to represent orange house. And it's told us that her house doesn't have 1 or 3 floors, therefore it must have 2 or 4 floors. So here for now I would write 2/4. The next rule reads, either the blue or the orange house has 3 floors, but in the previous line it's already told us that the orange house doesn't have 3 floors. Therefore from this we know that the blue house must have 3 floors. So next to this bit that I've already written, I would write B for blue house and then 3 underneath it for 3 floors. So let's look at the last rule where it says Tom has neither a red nor a green house. So if he doesn't have a red or a green house and Ursula has the orange house, then Tom must have the blue house as it's the only house left. So now we can fill in T for Tom above the blue and the 3 floors. And now let's go back to the line that says Ursula's house has more floors than the houses of Tom and Susan. So in order to have more floors than Tom's house of 3 floors, she has to have 4 floors. And now if you look at the first answer, we can disregard this as it says Ursula's house has 2 floors, which is wrong. And actually now we don't even need to work out the rest of the question. This is because once you've worked out Ursula's house and Tom's house, we can see that the third answer says Tom has a blue house with 3 floors. And luckily enough, you've worked this out, so therefore you can just mark this answer and move on. So we actually didn't need to work out what house Ross has and what house Susan has. So you need to think about saving time where possible, and also a variation of this type of question is that it could involve some numbers or some maths. So make sure you do brush up on your mental maths and being able to do quick sums in your head. And look out to see if you can eliminate answers early on so that you don't need to work out the full question. Okay, so this next question type, I'm not sure if it is its own question type. So it's all about mathematical equations, and I thought to include this because I came across quite a unique question which I thought would be useful to include for you guys in this video. So I found that these types of questions usually involved creating a type of equation. However, they usually throw shapes in, so it's not your traditional number equations. So let's have a look at a question from the Medify question bank. As you can see, there's a range of equations that involve different shapes here. And the question here is, which of the following makes the third equation true? So if we first look at the top equation, it says a square plus a rectangle equals a circle plus a triangle. So then if we go back to the third equation, which is the one the question is based on, we can see on the right hand side of the equation it says a rectangle plus a square plus question mark. And from the top equation we know that a rectangle plus a square is a circle plus a triangle. Therefore, we can actually substitute this into the third equation and replace the rectangle and the square. So now the third equation reads as follows. A circle plus a square equals a circle plus a triangle plus question mark. So the next step in solving this problem is we need to eliminate the circles on both sides of the equation. So that leaves us with a square equals a triangle plus a question mark. And from the equation on the fourth line, we can see that a triangle plus a triangle equals a square. Therefore, the question mark must be a triangle in order to equal the square on the left side. So that whole third equation would now be square equals triangle plus triangle, and therefore the answer here is triangle. And I will leave the full worked solution from Medify up on the screen now so you can have a read of that as well. So as you can see from this question type, it involves quite a bit of maths, a bit of rearranging and understanding how equations work. And I can definitely see how if you're not so comfortable with maths, a question like this would be quite tricky. And like I said, if you are spending too long on this type of question, don't be afraid to use the flagging function. And of course, the use of a whiteboard I think here is pretty essential. So the next question type that I want to go through is the probability type questions. This is where you get statistical information given to you and you need to have a bit of an understanding of probability and some basic maths. So what actually is probability? Probability is the likelihood that an event will occur. Again, you might find that you're a little bit rusty on your maths and you've not done probability questions in a while. So what I would recommend is going onto the BBC Bitesize website, and they actually have a nice little summary of probability and you can have a read of this. Usually there are two types of probability questions. One is where you need to make a decision using yes or no statements, so like we've seen before with the evaluating argument type questions. And the question here usually asks if someone should do something based on the probability of something. And the other type of probability question is a bit of a puzzle and you have to work through a stem and certain rules in order to solve the question. So let's have a look at a question that I've picked out from the Medify question bank. Pause the screen now if you want to have a read of this. So with questions like this, I would first skim through the information and then go to the question so that you know what it's referring to. So let's have a look at this question. Tim is taking up a new sport at university. He is deciding between squash and badminton. The probability that he will be able to afford the sport after 6 months is 5/8 for squash and 0.85 for badminton. The probability that he will want to carry on with this sport after 6 months is 0.7 for squash and 7/10 for badminton. Considering only the likelihood of being able to afford the membership after 6 months and the desire to continue after 6 months, should Tim take up squash? So one thing to note here is that they've actually mixed fractions and decimals. In a question like this, it would be really handy to be able to know the conversions between these in your head already. This is because it's much easier to compare numbers that are in one form rather than presented to you in two forms. So we can convert 5/8 to 0.625, and by doing so we can see that he is less likely to be able to afford squash over badminton. And then of course 7/10 is 0.7, so then we can see that there is equal probability that he'll want to carry on with both squash and badminton after 6 months. Therefore, if there is equal probability that he wants to carry on both sports the same amount after 6 months, this is no longer a deciding factor in this question. So now we only have to consider whether he will be able to afford the sport after 6 months. So looking at the probabilities of whether he can afford it, he's more likely to be able to afford badminton over squash after 6 months. Therefore, when we look at the options for the answers, we can see that the fourth one that says no, he will not want to carry on with squash after 6 months can be disregarded because the probabilities of wanting to carry on both sports are the same. Then we've got 3 more answers left to choose from. And if we look at the third one down, which says no, he is more likely to be able to afford badminton after 6 months, this is the correct answer because we were able to convert that fraction 5/8 and then compare the two decimals. And just based upon this comparison, that answer is the most relevant and the most logical, and it follows on from the information that's been given to us. And I will also leave the full worked solution up on the screen, so pause it and you can have a read of that. So not all probability questions will be as easy as this one, so I do recommend using your whiteboard to keep track of any rules or sums, and also be careful with the order that the probabilities are presented to you in a question, because this can greatly affect the answer. So the next type of question in decision making is interpreting information. This can be presented to you in text, charts, tables, and graph forms. So therefore you need to be pretty comfortable with information that's presented in different formats. This question type is all about data interpretation and trying to understand what the data is showing you. So let's now have a look at a question. Here you can see a graph and it's all about Martinez, who is a tree surgeon. He cuts trees in multiple local parks and he's counted how many trees he cut during the week. So on the y-axis you can see it says number of trees, and on the x-axis it says days of the week. So the question is, which of the following can be concluded from the data? And with this sort of question I would just recommend working through the options. So if we take the first option, Martinez cut 3 trees in a single park on Monday. Well, immediately this option says single park, whereas the information given to us says he cuts trees in multiple local parks. So we can count this one out straight away. The next one says Martinez is more productive towards the end of the week. Well, this graph is showing us how many trees he cuts during the week, but it isn't showing us a measure of his productivity. So therefore, from the information that's been given to us, we can't say that he was more productive towards the end of the week, as this is just a plain assumption. And the third option reads, Martinez did not take a day off his work during the week. And if we have another look at the graph, we can see that Martinez did work Monday to Sunday without taking a day off. So this third answer is the correct one. And just to complete the question, the fourth option is Martinez worked hardest on Friday as he cut the most trees. However, again, this answer lies in an assumption because we don't know the length or the width of the trees and how hard he had to work to cut each of those trees down. So in the answers provided, it actually says he may have cut smaller trees on Friday whilst on the other days he cut larger trees. So that shows we actually don't have this information and we can't make those assumptions that he worked harder on the Friday. And again, I will leave the full work solution up on the screen for Medify so you can check your answers against them. And the next type of question I want to talk about is Venn diagram questions. So for these questions, you definitely need to have an understanding of how Venn diagrams actually work. So once again, BBC Bite Size has a great page on this summarising everything that you need to know if you do need to remind yourself on Venn diagrams. Just as a quick summary of how they work, numbers that fall in the area between shapes belong to both of the shapes. Numbers that fall in one shape belong to only that one shape. And if the number occurs outside the shapes completely, then they don't belong to either set. However, in decision-making Venn diagram questions, they often involve multiple shapes, so they are a little bit more complicated. And sometimes questions can actually be a little bit cheeky because they can be disguised as Venn diagram questions, but they won't actually give you the diagram. And of course, you guessed it, in cases like these, a whiteboard is essential in order to visualise the information given to you. And you can also have a bit of a twist on the traditional Venn diagram question. So you can get given the information in the question and then the answers can be 4 Venn diagrams that you have to pick best represents the information. So let's have a look at a Venn diagram question. With questions like these, I would definitely read the question first and then go back to the information and scan for the relevant bits. So the question here is, based on the diagram, how many members of the families have recently been on holiday to the Maldives, Canada and Spain, but not Argentina or Dubai? So straight away from reading that, you can see that you're going to be looking at this diagram for quite a few bits of information. So if you have a look at the diagram, we can see that the Maldives is represented by a parallelogram. And then Canada is represented by the octagon, Spain is the heart, Argentina is kind of the flag-like shape, and Dubai is the rainbow shape. So we want the number that overlaps in the space between Maldives, Canada and Spain, but it doesn't overlap with Argentina or Dubai. And with a bit of practice, your eyes can actually start to find these numbers quite quickly. And if we look at the diagram, the number 4 is the only one that's in the area that overlaps between Maldives, Canada and Spain, but not with Argentina or Dubai. Therefore, the number 4 is the correct answer here. And feel free to have a read of the solution up on the screen now as well. Okay, so now onto the giveaway part. I'm so excited for this. I've teamed up with Medify to give 2 of you guys a free season pass to their UCAT question bank. And not only that, you also get free access to their new video pack feature, which will work alongside the question bank and support your learning and the understanding of the actual questions. So this new video pack that Medify are releasing very soon contains over 180 in-depth animated videos for Medify's UCAT tutorials, and over 3,100 video explanations of step-by-step worked solutions to all of Medify's mini mocks and mocks. And there's even better news. There is no additional cost for this new video pack feature. If you guys already have a Medify subscription, it'll be automatically added to your account. And if you're thinking of buying a Medify subscription, then it comes with that as well. So make sure you guys do go to the link in my description box down below and check out their website for all their details. I'm not getting any commission via this link if you do decide to sign up to Medify, but it does help me and my channel and help sort of track how many of you guys are interested in Medify from this video. So here on the screen is one of the example videos for one of the UCAT tutorials for evaluating arguments in decision making.
The question closely follows the format we outlined before. X is a ban on unhealthy foods at school canteens, whereas Y, the desired outcome, is improving health in young people. This is followed by your instruction.
And here is an example video of a worked solution for one of Medify's mini mock decision-making questions.
This means that Tom must be next to Gerald on his left, and Lauren must be in the one remaining spot on Gerald's left-hand side, between Tom and Ellie.
So as you can see from the videos, the information is laid out really clearly in this whiteboard style format and everything is explained step by step. So if you guys have ever done any Medify questions and you didn't quite understand how they came to the solution, or you want more theory behind each of the sections, then this new video pack feature will be perfect for you. Okay, so now you know about the exciting new launch. This giveaway is for 2 people. To enter and win access to the UCAT season pass and the video pack, all you have to do is 1. Like this video, 2. Comment down below to let me know why you should win and leave your Instagram handle so that I can contact you, 3. Subscribe to my channel, and 4. Follow me on Instagram at Raina on the Cusp. There will be 2 winners that I will pick at random in a week's time over on my Instagram story, so make sure you guys are following me over there, and I will contact both of the winners by Instagram, so good luck to you all. Thank you so much for watching this video and I will see you all again in the next one. Bye!